Caregivers, have you ever felt like nothing is going right? Well, cheer up and welcome to Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver radio program, where you'll learn how to avoid that dreaded thing called caregiver burnout and how to survive the grieving process. Join Dave and his guests now as they share practice tips and tools that you can start using immediately to help get you through this day. Now, here's your caregiver host, Dave Nasani.
From Los Angeles and New York City, a big LA and a big Apple, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I am Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host Adrienne Gruberg at the Caregiver Space. Say hello, Adrienne.
Hello.
Coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on 16 global audio and video platforms. There's iTunes, there's YouTube, there's Spreaker, there's SoundCloud, there's Vimeo, there's Stitcher, there's Blog Talk Radio, there's Mixcloud, there's Listen Notes, Blueberry, Player FM, Podcast.com, VIP Internet Radio, Facebook Live, HealthyLife.net, and CaregiverDave.com. And we're proud to be voted number 2 podcast out of the top 6 podcasts on Caring.com. for last year. We have an exciting show planned for you today, don't we, Adrienne?
Yes, we do.
We met this wonderful guest at the National Publicity Summit in New York a few months ago. Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp is an Ottawa-based
very good
chiropractor, the author, she's French, you know, the author of a recently published book, Hack Your Health Habits, as well as the creator of the Hack Your Health Habits Mastery Program, an online health coaching program. She's also the host of What the Hack podcast. Nathalie's mission is to help people achieve abundance in health, mind, and life. Well, I can't think of anyone who needs that more than caregivers. But before we get started, we're going to take this moment to thank last week's guest, Caregiving Without Stress. Dr. Marvin Marshall is one of America's leading experts in reducing stress, and we all need to reduce our stress. So you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on all our membership, all these sites I just mentioned above, and our membership website, caregiverdave.com. And like I mentioned earlier, no, never mind about that. All right, enough of that. Dr. Beauchamp, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on.
I'm so excited to be on, guys. Thank you.
Why don't you take a minute? I'd like to ask my guests to introduce themselves and just tell us, who is Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp and why was she put on this earth? Pardon?
Oh, I love the way you pronounce my name. This is actually really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
boy. My job.
Yes, no, you definitely do a great job of that. So, my name is Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp, yes, indeed. And I've been a practicing chiropractor and natural functional medicine practitioner for the past 24 years. But backtracking, my passion, I think, for health and helping people came from me being anorexic growing up. So unfortunately, at the age of 14, I'm 5'9". I now weigh 140 pounds. I went down to 89 pounds. So it was not a pretty thing or a healthy thing, and it was even dangerous to my health. So I got hospitalized in Montreal, Canada at the time. And
did they know in those days what that was?
Well, yeah, actually, surprisingly enough, but I think the care was probably limited, and I always say that, you know, I did not relate too well with the bearded 40-year-old psychiatrist that they had assigned to me. So just, you know, the connection wasn't there too much. So fast forward several years later, and it took me a while to find tools. And back in the days, you know, you could not Google anorexia and find out more about it. So I think that's why my thirst for knowledge just started, you know, library, and I was reading everything that I could. Yeah. And then went to Ottawa U you in health science, then chiropractic school, and just I keep on learning myself. I'm as you can see with the bookshelf behind me, I just love books.
Yes.
And to me, knowledge is power, but the application of that knowledge is crucial. And that's why the book I've written is called Hack Your Health Habits, because I wanted to give people the resources, but the habit part to me was really, really important, because we can all know what to do, but if we're somehow not able to make those changes in our lives, this is where we fall short. And seeing patients day in and day out for 24 years, I've become really good, I think, at giving little quick tips to people what they can do on a daily basis to move the needle forward, kind of thing. So that's what I'm really passionate about. I'm still on a learning journey myself. So this is the short introduction, I guess.
Well, and you're very fortunate, because many people have not been that fortunate, like Karen Carpenter, and we've lost so many to anorexia, bulimia. What's the difference between those two, by the way?
So, well, they're very similar, and I guess it's the manifestation itself that is different. So anorexia, the typical, I would say, is literally starving yourself to death, which I did. Bulimia is usually ingesting food and making yourself regurgitate, so you're not keeping those calories in, if you want. They're very closely related, and they're both in the food disorder category and in mental health rounds for sure. So again, the treatment might be a little bit different, but I think at the end of the day, the source and the causes are very similar and can really be addressed similarly for sure.
Is bulimia more dangerous than anorexia?
Well, it has its own challenges. So anorexia, like if there's no food taken in, you can see how this person can become nutrition deficient, and it can be dangerous. But making yourself regurgitate like this can be also dangerous and unhealthy, obviously. So I would think that more people have unfortunately lost the battle to anorexia than bulimia. But again, I don't have scientific facts on that. Just from a pure physiological point of view, if there's so much your body can do if you're not eating or fueling your body at all, right?
Yeah, and maybe the body can absorb whatever nutrients it had before it becomes regurgitated. Who knows?
To a certain extent.
Yeah. So, how old were you when you feel like you were finally rid of this, or will you ever be?
Very good question.
Are we just one, like an alcoholic, are we just one drink away from
Dave, I use this exact sentence you just used. So for me, it was at the age, I will say that to me, once you're anorexic, for me, and I can't speak for everybody that's had anorexia, it is like being an alcoholic. It is always in the back of my mind. Now, it doesn't consume me and rule my days anymore, but it's definitely always something. My relationship with food is probably different than somebody that's never had any issues. For me, it would be at the age of 30 years of age. So, 16 years of ups and downs and all around. And then, funny enough, for me, it was doing natural bodybuilding competitions. And a lot of people I know, I was getting some looks saying, well, isn't it a, body image issue? And I would have to say yes. But what I gained from that was the regiment of eating, certain food at a certain time that just made me see, oh, okay, this is how normal people eat. And then it made my structure is that, and made my relationship with food more like, okay, I need this fuel to perform and to be my best. So now this is how I perceive food is fuel to make me do what I'm passionate about and do what I want to do. So I did that for 4 or 5 years, and then I kind of joke, been there, got the T-shirt kind of thing, and it's just a phase in my life.
Did you
that
build
I
any
couldn't move on.
muscle like in your
Yeah,
arms and
you could
stuff?
say,
Wow,
yeah. And I now like to stay fit for me, not to hop on stage or anything like that. But it gave me a better relationship with food. It made me appreciate my body with its flaws and with its imperfection and be okay with it. So it really helped me in my self-esteem. And again, maybe for another person it could do the opposite, but for me that's what it really did.
Do you feel good at 140 pounds? You don't feel fat? And have you had
No.
children?
No, I have stepkids, so I always joke
Okay.
that I skipped the part. I got them already done, which is awesome. I thank their mother all the time because we're good friends. So no, I feel great. I feel good in my own skin, very much so. And I have locally gotten involved quite a bit in groups for young ladies to go and speak to them and so forth. Because to me, if I had someone like me when I was 14 and not a bearded 42-year-old psychiatrist, and no offense to you because you are.
I'm going to go
It is
shave.
not a psychiatrist.
I am kind of.
Advisor is different.
Well, I'm sure you listen well to people and give good feedback. So to me, if I could be that person to look up to, or because it was important to me to find someone who had gone through this and would say, okay, here's what happened and here's where I struggle and here's what you could do. I didn't have that. So, I really got involved locally in doing more of that, and I'm still on the lookout actually for other organization where I could potentially and go share my experience, because I think you feel really lonely, and if you have someone that's gone through it and seems like she's got her thing together now, it probably is more inspiring than not, right?
So you help a lot of young people, especially, no?
Yeah, young, and you would be surprised. Just this week, a patient came in, probably my age, and she's, mentioned that she has bulimia, always had, and is still struggling with it. And so I think there's more than we think, and a lot of time it's not officially flagged or diagnosed. I'm not a big fan of the diagnosis or labels per se, but I think there's more people than we think that probably don't have a super healthy relationship with food.
It's a shame-based condition, both of them, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah, and I did a lot of self-reflection after, why did that happen? And I had a loving family. I was never myself overweight to have been picked on, because that's a typical thing that will happen. Somebody's overweight. And so I'm not quite sure, but I think it has to do a little bit with having control over something. At 14, you don't control much, right? So if you can control the food that you're putting in your mouth, it's a certain feeling. And I didn't do it to rebel against my parents. I had very loving parents. So I'm still a bit baffled on how it happened, but obviously I had some self-confidence issue, body image issue that I needed to sort out. And I think it just made me a better person, made me more more understanding of other people. I have learned, and my mom always used to tell me that she admired that I don't judge people, because, the saying, you've never walked in somebody's shoes, so don't judge. They may, be talking to you in a certain way, but you don't know where they're coming from. So I think it made me less judgmental of a person, and always thinking, what's happened to this person for her or him to behave in that way.
Could be genetic, too. Never know.
You never know. You never know. Genetics are important. But on that note, I think oftentimes people blame genes too much. If you follow any work by Dr. Bruce Lipton, 3 to 5% is genetic, 95 to 97% is lifestyle. So, but again, the power of the body and the mind, it's not just physical. It's it's multifaceted for sure.
So how normal am I? Because I, for a while now, when I hit 170, I feel good about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I like food, and sometimes I'm good, and sometimes I'm not good. But when I start creeping up there and I reach that magic number 180, I says, okay, now it's time to do something. And then I'll bring it back down to 170, and I just keep this yo-yo, 180 to 170. I heard it was bad to fluctuate like that, but is that bad with 10 pounds? I mean, some people do it with 20 pounds or 30 pounds.
Or 40 pounds.
Or 40.
Yes. So many ways to answer this question. So, of course, having your weight more stable, I would say within 5 pounds is probably better than 10 pounds. But again, weight is one component. And I think, to maintain good health, it's more the fuel that you're putting in. So, I don't care that somebody is 165, but if they're feeding themselves sugary, high fructose corn syrup and so forth, so to me, health is not just a number on the scale. Now, carrying that extra weight for sure has an impact, but I think it's more the type of food that you're eating. And good for you that at 180 you say, okay, I need to do something about it, because unfortunately, 1 or 2 pounds a year, 1 or 2 pounds a year, it creeps up. And we see that often, right? People start families, they're busy with the kids' activity, and then they wake up at 40 and they are 40 pounds overweight just from, lifestyle choices that they've made. So to answer your question, I'd say 5 pounds is probably better, but it's the quality of the food that you're ingesting that is as important as the weight itself is.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a break. I stayed on that topic a little longer because I think a lot of people need to have a good background, a good foundation of what we're about to talk to. So don't go away. We will be right back.
We are a community of caregivers that understands and supports you wherever you are in your journey. We are a place to connect with other caregivers, but more importantly, a place to get practical, actionable help. There are lots of ways for you to get support. First of all, you can download our welcome pack. This will get you started on your Thrive journey. Next, you can ask and get answers to your questions by posting them here in our private Facebook groups. You can also get live online support by attending one of our live weekly Connect webinars. You can get practical, actionable advice by listening to our weekly podcast. You can hear and read other stories about other caregivers' experiences. Plus, add your own in our weekly Share Your Story forum, posted every Tuesday in the Facebook group. You can access essential resources and download practical Thrive Solutions packs, all of which are geared to help you thrive as a caregiver. You get lifetime access to all of our resources. Again, we're here to support you and help you thrive and to enjoy your life as a caregiver. And remember, this is a place to get hope, not just cope.
And we're back with Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp and Adrienne Gruberg.
Adrienne.
Yes, let me know how I should pronounce your name. And let's now navigate the conversation in a different direction, because you're a caregiver, right? Where you were, former or present or current?
Current, right flag in the middle of this.
How'd that happen, and what are you going through?
So my mother got diagnosed with Alzheimer's 2 years ago, and it went really, really fast. So no history in the family, nothing at all. Was just noticing she was just slower to react, slower to move. And
how old?
She's 73 now, so at
that's
71.
young.
Yeah, that is young. Never been sick in her life, other than a few little things. So
What are the symptoms?
The symptoms, well, at first is a lot of anger, a lot of, she was aggressive because she probably was realizing that something was not right. So we've gone through that for probably 6 months. My mom was always a heavy-set person. Now she's down to 120 pounds, so it's a big change with that. Her, just as of, you said, where are you in the process? I'm right in the middle of it, because this weekend I was at the hospital and she's now refusing to put her dentures. So we need to change her diet completely, and she's refusing to be washed and taken care of. So, every day there's a new normal, and that's kind of what I'm calling it now. And it was hard for me at first because I'm a healer. This is what I do day in and day out. So, at the beginning, it's like, okay, we need to give you this supplement and this supplement and so forth. And I also experience what people are being told, meaning, when I would share that with certain people, have you done the protocol for Alzheimer? And, my poor dad was just trying to keep up with everything and just give her any type of food, really. So it just made me realize sometime how selfish we can be in our, I shouldn't say selfish, but not as thoughtful as we could with the words to someone who has somebody that is with cancer, or because we're not in the situation. And then, on paper, in the big scheme of things, sure, but I would have literally have to close my practice down and just take care of her and to follow those types of protocol. And then you toss in the guilt, of all of that stuff. So it's not easy, and I'm an only child as well. My father also suffers from manic disorder, so I have to attend to him as well. So it's been a long road in the last 2 years, just giving as much attention to my dad as my mother, and they don't live in the same town as me. Thankfully, it's not super far, but it is an hour away. So now my mom.
Are they in assisted living or any facility?
No, my dad is still at home. He's physically quite capable. So he wanted to stay at home, which I can't blame him. So I have to make sure that, I drive down and stay overnight and spend time with him. And I call him just about every night or every other night just to make sure that he's had a good day, that kind of stuff. So that's my new norm. And that norm. Your
mom is in a facility.
She is. She's in a hospital in the province of Quebec, and a hospital which has a third floor wing strictly for Alzheimer patients.
Tell us how hard it was to put her there.
That was a hard decision, probably more on my dad than myself, because I was seeing how my dad's health was deteriorating and how stressed out he was. And what really did it, that she had a fall and they were both on the ground for probably, half an hour, had to phone the ambulance and so forth. So I think he really saw that he couldn't take care of her. And then it's the guilt, right? So maybe I could, and then he would flip-flop, and him being maniacal, it just, his mood would flip up and down, and it was hard for me because some days like, no, I'm okay, I can do this, and then the next day he was just losing it, and losing it on her, not physically or anything like that.
Right.
And,
did you have to make the final decision?
No, that fall really made the decision for us, because she had to be hospitalized, and then they really saw how far along she was. CAT scan was done and saw the, quite a bit of brain atrophy and so forth.
Yeah, those falls can be a blessing sometimes.
Yeah, unfortunately, she didn't break anything, but yes, I think that's so we went through that guilt even when she was in the hospital, where she stayed 8 months on a regular floor because depending on what state, what province people are, the system is going to be providing care differently. And then she was put into a private facility for a few months because they didn't have room. And oh my God, I felt like it was the Taj Mahal for her, because it was just not that it was pretty or anything like that, but just a small place, 9 people, 2 workers at all times, home cooked meal in the crock pot, and they just had a way with them. They would make them dance and sing and just turn everything. It was super small. And I was hoping and praying that they would kind of forget her there, but after 4 months, I received a call that she had to be moved within a couple days, and so I was really sad about that. She's still getting good care where she's at, but it's just a larger facility, and with her not being steady on her feet, I'm always afraid that she's going to fall, and we know what comes after that oftentimes for people. So.
You're bringing back such painful memories for me, because both of my mother and mother-in-law went through this, and a lot of it you just want to forget, but I was reliving it as you were talking. You mentioned the word guilt a lot. How do we get over that guilt? Because I always say there's undeserved guilt and there's deserved guilt, and you treat them both the same way. You just kind of throw them away, but there's a process, with undeserved, you fix it somehow. You make restitution. You turn yourself into the police. You say you're sorry, whatever it is.
Yeah, and
undeserved, you just ignore it because you don't deserve it. So how do you?
I'm answering this question not as a doctor, because this is not my specialty. I want people to understand. I'm answering this as a daughter. I think we have to accept the fact that it will fluctuate, that we can't add all the best intention at first. I'm going to go twice a week. And, I had made myself a little schedule and then realized, my God, I'm not being realistic with this. And even people in my family saying, Nathalie, you don't have to go every week, she just doesn't even know that you've gone. But, for me, it was more giving her love. That I know when I'm there, I'm hugging her, I'm kissing her, I'm just, trying to make her laugh. And I know she won't know that I've gone, but to me, it's like that moment, however short it was, that she can feel that she's still loved. I go by bouts that I can go more often. Sometimes I travel and I can't. And being an only child, it's not like I can't phone up a brother and a sister and say, hey, I'm out of town for a bit. Can you go and check up on mom? So it is tough. Fortunately, my dad is still physically able to go, and since she's been in the new facility, he seems to go more often, which is awesome for me, because I know that she's taken care of in that sense. And it's so cute because I bought them a Vitamix for my dad to make, concoction as he calls it, and he still does that, and he brings that to the hospital to her at least every couple of days. So we know she's getting, some decent nutrition. In there, so which is kind of nice. But it's and then she has friends, or they have friends, but older age group, it's not around the corner, so the visits are probably a little bit more sporadic than they used to be. Her own siblings are older than her, so I can't ask my 80-year-old uncle to drive 45 minutes, every week. So at first I kind of was, okay, let's set a schedule, and you go visit that day. And I soon realized that you can't do that.
How far are you from each other? Your father from your mother?
My father is an hour away from me, and my mom is half an hour. And thankfully, it's right flat in the middle. So half an hour.
And your father's 30 minutes from her?
Yes, so we often meet there, we'll spend time, then we go for coffee together and so forth. So to answer it, that was a long answer, but to answer your question to the guilt, I'm not expecting it to go away, to be honest. I know that I will have some bouts that I will feel more guilty, and when I go, I just try to be fully present with her. And I'm fortunate, she still recognizes me, so I just love hearing my name, or or saying
She just
my
can't remember the
feet are
last time
just.
you were there.
Oh, even if I go to the bathroom, she won't remember that I'm
Uh-huh.
there. So
Right.
her short term is that short. But hey, I'm counting my blessing that right now she knows who I am and gets as excited, I think, as the day I was born to see me. So to me, it's gold.
So is
So
that
I'm
guilt that
just
you still feel and will continue to feel, is it deserved, do you think?
no,
Or are you
no,
just being
not.
hard on yourself?
Well, is guilt really always something that is deserved? I don't think
No.
so. I think guilt is, no, I don't think so. Guilt is more an emotion that we experience. And I like to think of emotion as energy in motion. And I really try, not just with guilt, to let emotion are real. You can't deny them. But I really try to let them flow through me and pass through me, but not consume me. I listen to them because obviously they have a teaching for us. But I'm not perfect here, but this is kind of my philosophy that why am I feeling this emotion and kind of learn from it, let it flow through me. And sometimes it's easier than others. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm getting this. But it's expecting that next time I go visit, it's going to be completely something different.
Yeah.
And Saturday was the no denture. Whoa, we don't look so good with no denture. So it was a bit of a shock for me. So I'm like, Mom, where are your denture? Obviously, she doesn't know. In the bathroom, they were there where they're supposed to be. Went to one of the nursing staff, and I said, what happened to my mom's? She's like, she's been refusing to put them in for the last week. They don't want to force it, which I understand to a certain extent. But me being a doctor, I'm like, okay, how is that going to affect her food or absorption and all of that stuff? But then I said, you know what, Natalie, it's you got to roll with it. And I often stay for dinner with her to make sure I can help with her eating. And I'm feeding her stuff that I would not feed her on in other circumstances. But I'm just being the daughter at that point, not the doctor, and I'm just going with the flow. And I mean, she is getting as good as of a care as I think is possible. The staff is great, nurturing, and so forth. So you really have to let go of your expectation and your standard, and even the way she looks. Sometimes the days that I go and it's not my mother. My mother was always someone that had her hair done every week and her lipstick, and she just would not go out not looking decent. So I miss seeing that part. And when I go, I often do her hair, but now we're at a point that it's even curling her hair. She's all agitated and doesn't understand. So I had to let go and say, okay, it's going to be my mom with no teeth and flat hair, and I'm just going to go with this, right? So.
And I can understand the guilt because, like you said, even though she doesn't remember the last time you were there, because my mother, so where you been? I haven't seen you in a month. I said, Mom, I was here yesterday. And it's like just knowing that she gets so excited when she sees you, that's hard to not feel guilty to saying, gee, I can make my mom feel good today if I would just go, yet I was just there 2 days ago and I can't go. And is that deserved or undeserved? I don't know. But it's an emotion, like you said, and it just reminds us that you still have a mother and one day you won't, and make the most of it and so on.
Yeah.
But would you agree with that?
Oh, I totally would agree.
Anything to add, Adrian?
Moment.
I just had a question. You said that your mom had been heavyset.
Yes.
Do you think that there was anything in her eating habits that contributed to the Alzheimer's?
I do. So it's never one thing. So I want people to, really grasp that concept. So I'm not saying that she brought this upon herself. That's not what I'm saying. But I think our health becomes everything that we've done throughout the year. So my mom was always heavy set, was on Centroid medication for thyroid issues, was a school teacher, very performant for 35 years, and she would have hard time sleeping. So she would take some medication for decreased anxiety and for sleeping. And now thinking back, it was for many, many years. And now we know with there's research coming out that benzo drugs can be associated with Alzheimer and dementia. So, all of this, can it trigger, can it be that sadly perfect storm that will lead to that? I strongly believe so. I got us tested for one of the Alzheimer genes, the ApoE4 genes, and neither of us have it. So not to say that it's completely ruled out genetically. Like I said, this is more complex than one gene. But it made me feel good in a way to know that it wasn't... It made me feel bad and it made me feel good in a way that it was not genetic. And then, more guilt for sure to say, yikes, should I have intervened sooner with her? But back then,
more guilt,
I wasn't at
just
home.
what you need.
More guilt, yeah. And back then I was not close to home because I went to do my study much further. So yeah, there's that guilt of, trying to, here I am teaching health and helping tons of other people. Could I have helped my mom more? Was she ready to accept it?
Right.
Later on, their lifestyle changed quite a bit. I would say the last 5-10 years, she went to a healthier weight. But I was just looking at photo of her when she was teaching and really busy with everything. And, you could tell that she was.
What was her high weight?
205. So
that's a lot.
She's 5'9", so farmer's girl, so big bone, that kind of thing. It's not like, she was morbidly obese, but carrying definitely more weight than she should have.
So there could have been a genetic thing going on with you and your anorexia, because maybe genetically, your body was tempted to be larger, and maybe you.
I don't know. I'm not one to blame genes too easy. So I don't
what was
know,
the most you weighed ever?
Ever? 170.
Okay.
Yeah, so 89 pounds to 170. So, we have so much more to learn with genetic testing and all of that stuff. So I don't even want to go that route because I think we're still missing too much information.
Yeah. Listen, let's take another break and we'll be right back, so don't go away.
Annie, the Caregiver's Caregiver, has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too. Reclaim your caregiver sanity by learning when to say yes and when to say no. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through, because he is one. And he now speaks all across the country, offering caregivers his incredible caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's My Life Too. Reclaim your caregiver sanity by learning when to say yes and when to say no. Will help caregivers who are neglecting their sleep, diet, and social life, and learn to put their needs first. Pick up your copy today, or buy one for your special caregiver. On sale everywhere, and at caregiverscaregiver.com.
And we're back with me, Dave Nassani, Adrian Gruberg, my guest, and... No, not my guest, my co-host, and my guest, Nathalie Beauchamp. I love saying that. I have a question. You said something about Alzheimer's gene. That intrigues me. Do they have a dementia gene also? And how can we be tested for that?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. Yeah, so
my
far.
Mother had dementia.
Pardon me?
My mother had dementia, and I was always wondering, if I might get it one day. Because
I think we're really at the tipping point of discovering more and more and more and more. The Alzheimer gene is done with one of them is the 23andMe, and again, I'm not saying that's the only gene that's affecting Alzheimer. I always believe it's more than one, and to try to zoom it and narrow it down to one thing, I think we're kind of missing the boat.
there is a difference between Alzheimer's and dementia, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, very much
So unless you are officially diagnosed Alzheimer's, they just kind of say dementia.
Yes, and I think where it gets confusing is that they always they don't always, but they often crisscross. So you'll have dementia, Alzheimer, and even Parkinson's. So my mom is manifesting some Parkinson's sign, not so much in the tremor, but in her gait, in her shuffle, like she's shuffling a lot, in her balance and so forth. And talking to her physician, I voiced my concern about that, and she says they often go hand in hand. So that's why I think we have so much work to do when it comes to learning about the brain. It is such a complex thing, right? You think of it, it's like our motherboard for our computer, and you know, it's complex.
And it lets us down a lot. It certainly lets me down a lot, my brain and my memory and my short-term memory. And my mother had dementia, and she was kind of like a cross between Martha Stewart, Gracie Allen, Edith Bunker on All in the Family, and Ruth on the Golden Girls. Not Ruth. What's her name?
And
whatever her name is.
The taller
Rose?
one?
Rose on the Golden Girls.
Okay, yeah.
You know, just kind of ditzy and airhead, and she's been like that all her life, and it's so hard when you're that kind of a person to know when dementia comes on, because they always acted that way. But when you get the phone calls in the middle of the night, it says, does AM mean that it's nighttime, or does PM mean that it's nighttime, you know, on her clock? And so that was the first clue. I says, oh my gosh, this is more than just being dingy.
Ditzy.
He's got a problem.
Yeah.
And so I saw this ad on Facebook 3 years ago, early dementia, Alzheimer's detection, free study, and so I signed up because I don't want to be the last one to know that I've got it, you know, and my kids are whispering behind my back, we better take away his keys, you know, of the car. And so I go every 6 months to get my test, and to my shock, they says, well, you're right close to the borderline. I says, oh, great. And so they said there's things you can do, you know, and then I think I started my radio show shortly after that. And my scores started getting better and better because I have to think on my feet here. I don't like crossword puzzles. In fact, I hate them. I just can't do them. They frustrate me. And I know they say those are great things to do, but my scores are getting better, but I'm still dangerously close to the borderline. So maybe I'm just kind of, you know, that ditzy kind of a person as well. And so it may be hard to find out if I ever get it because of my behavior, but I certainly don't want to be the last one to find out, and I want some objective. I recommend that for those of you who also have concerns.
I don't see you as ditzy at all, Dave.
Good. Ask my wife and you'll get another answer. She sees a side of me that, you know. I'm always losing things around the house, you know, and I'll leave to go to work, and I'll come back because I forgot something. Then I'll leave again. I'll come back 3 times. I think was the record that I came back. And so, you know, those
sometimes we just have too much on our head, on our mind, right?
Yeah, I think.
Right? Yeah.
That stuff's very common.
Yeah, they tell me if you forget things, but then you later remember them, then you're okay, you know. But if you forget things and they're gone forever, they never come back. You know, you get like hard drive sectors burned out or something, and that's something to be concerned about. So let's talk about your patients, doctor, and what you do for other patients. Maybe you deal with caregivers as well, because everything we're talking about is great information for caregivers, because they're suffering with guilt, and they're suffering with, you know, what do I do with mom who's got dementia, and you know, What are your patients like, and how do you deal with them? And you have some stories you want to share about that?
Yes. So throughout the years, I've had many patients who were caring for other people, and the last 2 years I can so resonate even more because I'm going through it myself. So you're right that the oxygen mask. I always give that example as well, and I like to be that voice for them. That when they come, I can listen and just remind them to take care of themselves, right? And sometimes, you hear it from your friends and family, but sometimes I think it has a different impact when it's coming from somebody that you've been seeing for years, that you trust, that is your healthcare practitioner. So definitely, sleep is a huge thing. And I always say when I'm interviewed about the book, what is the number one hack that one can do? And I would say making sure that you're getting good restful sleep. The other big thing too is our food. And to go back to your situation, that's another huge thing that you can do to cut the sugar. And sugar can cause inflammation, as in osteoarthritis, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, but brain inflammation is not good either. So making sure that we decrease our simple sugar is huge. From a diet perspective, the omega-3s are great, making sure that we're feeding ourselves the good fat, the salmon, the avocados, the nuts. Our brain is a big component of it is cholesterol, is fat. Our cell membranes are they're 2 layers of fat basically, and they're encompassing everything that we need. So I think in recent year we've gone, cut the fat, and I think we've changed fat for sugar, and I don't think it's helping anything. Actually, dementia and Alzheimer have been called type 3 diabetes. Now we know that it can literally cross the brain barrier and have an impact. Great reads on that are Dr. Mark Hyman, has got some good information on there, Dr. Danielle Amen as well. So there's a lot more coming out now, acknowledging that body inflammation is not good and brain inflammation is not good as well. So food-wise, that's great. And then oftentimes what's overlooked is supporting the adrenals. The adrenals are the glands that are producing adrenaline. That's why we'll say, oh my God, I almost got in an accident, my adrenaline was pumping. So that's the short acute response, but the chronic response is abnormal cortisol level. So at first there's 3 phases of adrenal fatigue, and I have this conversation with patients because, if they're in phase 1, what can we do to support, because we don't want them to manifest to phase 2 and phase 3 where cortisol is just all tapped out. And for women, it even affects our sex hormone, because there's something called adrenal steal or cortisol steal, where the cortisol is going to try to, get produced, and it's going to steal some building blocks of our sex hormone, estrogen and progesterone and DHEA, and even for men, testosterone. So it's and then you see this cascade of things that are happening. So the sleep, the good food, decreasing the sugar, and then making sure that you're not suffering from adrenal fatigue. And if you are, obviously the lifestyle needs to be addressed, but there's good herbal supplements that people can take to support the adrenals, because sometimes I even had to take it myself. Sometimes, life happens and things are being thrown at you and you're like, whoa, hold on a second here. So I knew that it was going to be temporary, but I knew that I needed that extra help with more supplements and be more regimented with my sleep. There's some days I would say to my husband, 7:30 on a Saturday night, good night, honey, I'm going to bed. I need that sleep, right? So I really made an effort. Yeah, I'm sure, right? So I really, still to this day, make a conscious effort to say no. And you were talking about that in with the book cover, I could see, David, when to say yes and when to say no. And that's exactly an example of that, to say no to going out maybe on a Saturday night just because I knew that at that point I was pushing the envelope and I was pushing my adrenals and I needed to rest.
Caregivers are always pushing their envelopes.
And even, to go back to my dad when he was taking care of my mom, I often ask myself, could I even take care of her for one day on my own? And I think the answer would have been no. And I'm like, oh my God, Dad's like, kudos to you. And, they've been married 52 years and this is how it's done kind of thing.
Wow.
So it's, so that's usually the advice that I will give to people. And then just, listening, not giving advice. I'll give them advice from what to eat and to sleep because they're expecting it from me. I'm a doctor, but for everything else, just listen. That's, we just want, when it's us, we just want to tell the story. We don't want to, necessarily hear, oh, so-and-so had to deal with it and so forth. Just oftentimes is just listen. And my husband knows, he knows when I get into that mode, when I come back to see my mom, he just sits there and he listens and he knows that I'm not looking for a solution here because there's none. And this was the normal this Saturday night and I don't know what next Saturday night is going to be. And, it's just to roll with it, right?
Wow. Amazing. Adrienne, any thoughts?
Oh, you have a lot of wisdom.
It's a work in progress, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I
had a
made me grow.
Since caregivers don't necessarily have that time to sleep, what supplements would, like, just off the top of your head, that would be good for anyone to be taking?
Well, an adrenal support would definitely be good. And then, naps are great, right? I know personally I'm not a good napper, but I know my dad, for instance, you can sit the man in a chair for 10 minutes. He's going to sleep sitting and he's going to be like a new person after. So if you're lucky enough to be a good napper and you can somehow during the day take those naps, please. Melatonin would be a good supplement to help balance that cortisol because they kind of work in opposite. One goes up, the other one goes down. But I'm never one to take a supplement just for the sake of taking a supplement. If we can try to go to the source of the problem,
behavior.
But if sometime, behavior. But if sometime it's really not doable, those are two things that I would definitely suggest.
So you are a chiropractor. There's so many different kinds of chiropractors out there. There's the Palmer method. There's the cervical. I mean, what kind are you? I'm
what it's called a diversified. How's that for an answer?
I've never heard of that one before. I'm going to write that one down.
So, oh my goodness. And I think we all graduate chiropractors and then we have a certain set of tools. And as we progress in our own practice, we keep adding tools to our toolkit. And I think after 24 years, if I went back to everybody that I graduated with, we're probably so different. And yet we've learned the same thing. So I really feel that my profession, we go in all sorts of different directions depending on the results we see, our passions, so it just, to me, my approach is whatever tool I need to help the person that's on my table. So I use a variety of technique, but also with the book and with my online programs, I wanted to give people the support from a lifestyle point of view, right? Because people don't know what they don't know. And there's a lot of information out there. It can be overwhelming. And sometimes people just give up. It's like, oh my God, like one day vitamin D is good. The next day it's going to give you this. And they're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do anymore. Isn't it? So that's what I wanted to do with the book is zoom in what's important. I mean, I don't have all of the answer. I'm not pretending that I do, but then I reference other books if they want to go and read more. But at least, I covered pretty much all the facets of health in the book and in my online stuff, so I can guide people. And it is also at a self-paced, because schedules are probably going to be all over the place. So to me, it was easy that the book was in bite size, and the training is short enough video that you're not going to sit there for 5 hours, and integrating those things, because if you do it all at once, it's overwhelming and people give up, let's face it. But if you change little things, then it can have an effect. I always say if you change one habit a month, so that's not too overwhelming, at the end of the year, you'll have improved potentially on 12 different habits. And this is when you really can get some momentum.
And I always say, it took a series, multiple bad decisions to get where you are today. And you're not going to change overnight, but it's going to take a multiple series of good decisions. So hold up your book again. Yeah, so that's a huge book as far as 8.5 by 11. Oh, and it's a thick book, too.
Yeah,
1 inch thick,
600 and plus page.
Wow, it's an
I had a lot to say.
encyclopedia.
It is.
So how would somebody use this? They can't just start reading it from cover to cover, right? Is it designed to be a reference book?
It can be, and the sections are really well laid out. So, for instance, if somebody had adrenal issues, there's a chapter on this. If somebody had...
Open it up. Let me see how big the print is.
It's I was going to ask.
Okay.
It's not tiny type.
A lot of information in there.
Yeah, lots of information. I infused some humor in there. I even have a fictitious character. Her name is Katrin. She's 42 years old, and we're kind of reading the book through her eyes of, she's got 2 kids and is a busy mom with a career. So I'm, was really trying to make it fun. And I know a lot of people who have read the book have said that it has become a reference guide, because they know, there was a chapter on intermittent fasting or whatever the topic may be. So.
All right. So how can somebody get a hold of you, buy the book, make a chiropractic appointment? Well, you're in Canada.
You've got to be in my city for chiropractic care, so that might be more of a challenge. But the book is available on all the different platforms, Amazon and Barnes & Nobles and Indigo in Canada, and everywhere pretty much, or on the website hackyourhealthhabits.com.
Love the title.
Thank you. I have a 7-day challenge that people can even sign up for free. It's drnathealthchallenge.com. It's free. I send them an email every day with a workout, a nutrition tip, a meditation. It's again, it's just to get people going and experiencing and trying new things.
Adrienne, how do we get a hold of you, and what have you got going on at the caregiver space lately these days?
Well, I know Corey's making changes. We're starting a new pen pal program, but
that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And you got all your groups. You got the after caregiving. You got cancer. You got daughters. You got sons. You got long-term
LGBT.
care, spouses, LGBT.
Yep.
Wow, can't keep track of it. It keeps growing.
No, it keeps growing. And it's Adrienne at thecaregiverspace.org, and everything else is thecaregiverspace.org or the Caregiver Space. So
great. And again, a reminder that all our live shows become recorded pod and video casts on our membership website and all those other platforms that I mentioned earlier, the caregiverdave.com. And we have 3 free gifts for you at caregiverdave.com. Check it out, no obligation. And then please consider joining our membership website. It's a tremendous value. There's lots of stuff there to help you stay alive and burnout free. And as a special bonus for joining for a limited time, I'm offering a free hour of coaching with every single membership. So Dr. Beauchamp, Adrienne, and all my listeners, thank you again for tuning in. So until next week, same time, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Caregivers Caregiver radio program with Dave Nasani.